I'm Jonathan, also known as the PC Genie. I have terrible organisational skills, which is why I'm recording in a church just before the service, because it's now or never. So, as per the title, we're going to be looking at how a turn of the hand can turn your standard strikes into something much more quicker and efficient, as well as open up a world of opportunities for more advanced strikes and things as well. So let's get started. Now, if we're looking at a sort of normal way of attacking, if you look at someone who's doing it for their first time, they might attack, let's say we'll go for an attack cut from the right, as in my right, and then a cut from the attacker's left. So it'd go 1, 2, they'd be doing. Now, a key difference here is that when you're doing after that first attack, or even sometimes for the first attack itself, you're doing this full body movement. Now, of course, it's instinctive for good reason, putting the full body with the hands, the arms, the whole shoulder twist, and even a full step puts a lot of power into the cut. So if you wanted to hit something really hard, such as hitting the opponent, beating their weapon aside, or powering through maybe a weak parry they're doing, then yes, doing all of this in one powerful hit can work well. But when you want to outmaneuver your opponent and hit them multiple times or hit them by surprise, this doesn't really work, because anybody with even basic training is going to see this coming and just parry, get out of the way, or do something else to avert it. So what you can do instead is what I'm calling the turn of the hand. Now, this works with single-handed weapons and two-handed weapons. Anything that can perform a cut or a thrust, although it works better with cuts. So let's say, rather than going cut from the left, apologies, cut from the right, which would be your left and right, instead I do first cut and second cut. So what I've just done there is, rather than putting all of my arms and all of my body into making that second strike, I'm instead just turning around with the hands. So in this case I'm using top and bottom hand, twist around, and I can follow my body. I can still do all the rest of the movement, like this step, where I'm basically bringing, instead of my right foot forward at first, and then put my left foot back forward again. I can do all of that. It's just that it follows behind the sword. You're leading with the sword, so I can give you that again. So here I am, left foot forward, first attack, which will just be as normal, and then for the second attack, I turn up. Now let me just turn the camera up slightly so you can see better. So, here is the cut again. First cut, second cut. You can do again, and again, and again, and again, forever. In fact, in our historical European martial arts, there's a little term where we call it the helicopter of death, where someone who doesn't really have a proper battle plan may very well just resort to this turn of the hand. So rather than going one and then slowly again and again, instead they're actually able to get an opponent on their back foot by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as long as needed until the opponent's defense collapses. And I've just shown you 2 high attacks, but you can also change from high to low, low to high, and also from the sides. So I could start with this sort of high attack, but I can also turn. I could, instead of going like that, I can instead go 1, 2. And again, I'll show it from the other side. So I go 1, 2. So you can also go from low to high. Let's say I'd gone and cut the opponent from below. I could then cut from above. Had to pull that a bit so I don't hit the camera, but you get the idea. So again, I could start from low, cut up to high, and rather than going all the way around, I can cut from below, and then what I'm doing to show the hands, I'm just turning it, just turning the actual sword's handle. With two hands, they're sort of moving in a circle around each other, so you'll see, let me get an area where I've got room, because I really don't have room anywhere. So I go like that, and like that. It's all turning around. You can see it's basically turning around the pivot point of this top hand, and then I'm using the pommel hand to turn it around that. With a single-handed sword, it can be a bit strenuous at first, because you're doing it all with that one hand. But it is still just as capable and just as fast. Obviously, I'm just showing it a bit slower now because I've got a two-handed sword in my hand and it's not designed to use in one hand. So I could go first cut, second cut. I could go first cut, second cut, and the same sort of thing above. It works in various ways as well. There are different advanced techniques, and you can look into things like, if you specifically look up, for example, how to perform a zwerchau, or if you look at a squinting cut, and a variety of other moves like that, you can perform these sorts of actions. And also there's such a thing as the Maya square, where you're expected to cut from one angle to the next, but not slowly. You're supposed to do it with the turn of the hand. And it allows you to keep cutting, and like I said, it can also turn into thrusts. So I could, for example, let's say I've cut from below, and I could turn with the hands. After I've met the opponent's sword, I could turn around them, and it's positioned there for a thrust. So you're doing that turn and then lunge out. Turn over that pivot point, and then I just extend that thrust. And another example being, if I was to cut from above, I could cut down like that. So I'm doing this powerful cut. And for maximum head splitting efficiency, this sort of thing works. Okay? But if my opponent knows it's going to happen, is just going to do some sort of parry with a sword or a shield or whatever, I could instead use that turn of the hand to get over their defence. So rather than cutting down like that with the body, I could instead, rather than going just like that, I could perform that turn of the hands. So pivot point again is this top sword hand, and use the pommel hand to pivot it around that point. And then what I can do is an opponent who'd be able to block this angle might find me going over their defences if I do this turn of the hand. And I could do that separately, like cutting down into their parry, turn of the hand, and it's positioned to thrust down into their face, or I could just immediately go for step 2 and cut down with that turn of the hand included, and that can allow me to go over their defences. Obviously, none of these particular tactics are guaranteed to work, and there will be opponents who know about these sorts of moves and will be able to counter them. But improving your repertoire and allowing yourself to do things like actual attacks or counter-attacks, and even sometimes use these turns of the hand to function parries or beats, those sorts of defensive actions, really makes you a better swordsman, rather than constantly and slowly powering through by overcommitting your full body to every single attack or defense. Instead, just doing these subtle, minimal movements to perform your attacks and parries, which will, like I said, make your sword fighting skills much better. So yeah, practice that. You can get many items. You could get a broom handle and a pillow if you've got something like one of those boxing punch bags, or you make a pel out of something like a car tyre over a wooden frame, or even just practicing with a live opponent who's got protective equipment. Just doing those types of attacks, just asking him to parry, performing one attack, second attack, and doing it just with those turns of the hand, and doing it in that circle, or square rather, and doing those sorts of attacks will make sure that you also get the speed to do so, because this is one of the types of techniques that really heavily relies on speed. And with that turn, if you do it quick enough, you can be able to get around an opponent's defence and catch them out before they even have a chance to react, ideally. So that's our quick lesson for today. Apologies for my usual rambling style. I'm not a trained teacher, so there we go. But hopefully you've learned something today. And if you have any wishes, the whole Genie thing is there for a reason. Ask to learn something, and I'll do a video to tell you. Ta-ra for now, and goodbye.